Russian soldiers defect under Surovikin insight into Ukraine's night operations. The destruction of Ukrainian cities demonstrates the courage and determination of the Ukrainians in their struggle for freedom. We must understand and support the noble struggle of these people, as this conflict is at the core of their everyday lives. Let's look at the situation in the Ukraine front to see where the hotspots are. Numerous plans have been put forward since Russia's involvement in Ukraine. Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, made a grave mistake by assuming this creation of Ukraine would only last a short time. Initially caught unawares, Ukraine quickly responded with a clearly defined strategy and resolute troops. Putin was having some success at first. Despite the Russian occupation of various territories in Ukraine, a counteroffensive was launched as soon as Russian forces began to occupy those areas. As the weather improved, the Ukrainian forces progressed in reclaiming areas under Putin's influence. Ukrainian forces have successfully recaptured Yurytania, a village located in the border area between Zaporizhia and Donetsk. 8 villages have been liberated in the summer offensive, which has reclaimed approximately 100 kilometers of occupied territory. The Ukrainian forces have relied primarily on small-scale attacks rather than large-scale movements that involve mechanized infantry. Also, they have cleared minefields near the administrative border of Zaporizhia and Donetsk. Despite reports of a failed Russian counterattack in Makiyivka by Ukrainian officials, the village is still under Ukrainian control. Invaders use a variety of tactics to stop breaches in the defensive lines in the Tavria sector. Russian forces escalated their action by destroying 2 dams on the Makryoli River to impede Ukrainian advances. Mary Vladislav Duder is a representative of Ukraine's Ministry of Defense. According to the statement, Russian forces regularly destroy and target small dams located in localities to disrupt Ukraine's counterattack operations. Ukrainian fighters received substantial support, both in terms of staffing and technology. Ukraine has successfully taken control of the Russian-occupied administrative center and handicaps on the Sea of Azov. Ukrainian fighters also managed to eliminate the 35th Russian army commander. Ukraine has also reported regular attacks in the Russian-occupied stock market of Melitopol in the Zaporozhye region. Part of which is the strategically significant occupied land corridor. Ukrainian forces continue offensive operations near Bakhmut in the western Zaporozhye region. Russian sources report that Ukrainian forces are launching limited ground assaults southwest of Oregon and south of Gullible in the western ZAP Russia area. Panamalayalom confirmed that Ukrainian forces had advanced 250 meters north and 200 meters south of Bakhmut. Bakhmut is a very important area for both sides. The progress made by Ukrainian fighters here gives us hope that Ukrainian resources can be diverted from the areas that Ukrainian forces are targeting. Russian artillery has increased significantly in other parts of Ukraine. The fact that most weapons were claimed to be American surprised everyone, as Russia is known to criticize Israel's aid to Ukraine. The Kremlin has reprimanded Medvedev for suggesting that Israel would be able to support Ukraine and would not cause any problems. This development has complicated the situation, as Russia and Israel are flourishing. According to Kremlin sources, Putin allegedly threatened to fire Medvedev. Despite these discussions, Medvedev, vice chairman of the Russian Security Council, flew on a private jet to the United States. This arouses curiosity in America. Medvedev's visit to the United States was the first time that the recent protests in Russia against the war and Putin were brought to light. Despite their efforts to work together, Vladimir Putin and Medvedev's frequent clashes over the years have added to the chaos. Medvedev has taken a stand against Putin in the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Medvedev saw an opportunity when Putin launched the attack against Ukraine. U.S. officials were frustrated by Putin's aggressive behavior and opposed to Russia taking over Ukraine militarily. They secretly held talks with Dmitry Medvedev's predecessor to try to remove Putin from power. In the wake of these meetings, Russian intelligence agencies found that Medvedev had a bank in the United States with a substantial amount of money transferred. Sergei Shoigu was the first Russian defense minister to respond. Putin used Russian security forces against the protests and imprisoned many Russians. Since the beginning of the conflict, thousands have been arrested. 20,000 people have been jailed. Putin's invasion of Ukraine triggered these protests. Due to the withdrawal of major Western firms from Russia, the embargoes imposed on Russia by the United States and other Western countries have led to significant changes in the Russian economy. Inflation has risen, and the cost of essentials like food and technology is higher. Reunification supporters in Russia called for Putin to resign and withdraw from Ukraine. Putin is angry because his power has been challenged, even though it isn't his main concern. Putin had forced 300,000 Russians to join the military a few months before. He hoped to boost his military for the conflict. Vladimir Putin faced a problem during the invasion of Ukraine, as most Russian minorities had already joined the Russian military. Putin sent these ethnic minorities to fight in Ukraine deliberately, taking advantage of his decades-long assimilation campaign of minorities over time. Experts say that the Russian army's situation in Ukraine is grave. The Russian arsenal is depleted, and no raw materials can replace it. According to reports, Putin has difficulty paying Russian soldiers in Ukraine. This is causing him to use funds from the state's treasury. Putin has contacted wealthy Russians, including oligarchs, to secure military funding. Despite his promises to the contrary, Putin recognizes that despite Russia's significant oil and gas reserves being a source of wealth for the country, it is necessary to continue selling natural gas to Europe. The financial stability of the Russian military in Ukraine would be affected if natural gas and petroleum deliveries were to cease. The Russian military presence in Ukraine could be forced to withdraw due to the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. The United States assisted the Ukrainian armed forces in improving their arsenal. Japan's decision to provide Ukraine with military equipment has extended the conflict between Russia and Japan to Ukraine. The long-standing dispute between Russia and Japan that lasted 77 years was reignited in 1945 when Russia annexed Japan's Kuril Islands. Japan still wants these islands, which leads to tensions. A team of Japanese training officers will be sent to Ukraine to train the Ukrainian military using the new tanks and armored vehicles. About 80 Japanese soldiers will participate in the training mission. The rumors that soldiers in Syria felt unsafe and were heading to Ukraine for their deaths are unfounded. Several countries offered military assistance to Ukraine as the conflict escalated between Russia and Ukraine. The assistance provided by these countries has helped improve the capabilities and equipment of the Ukrainian armed forces. Poland has been an important donor of financial support and aid to Ukraine. Poland was a refuge for many Ukrainians fleeing the conflict. The Polish government has taken measures to ease their residency requirements. What will happen next? What were the motivations behind Russian soldiers defecting under General Surovikin? Nobody knows, because you can expect anything from both sides during the war. So stay with us as we regularly bring you authentic news from the battleground.